Okay, thanks so much. I'm pleased to be leading this meaningful conversation as part of our Z3 2020 Visions of a Shared Future. For our conversation today, we're going to explore the concept of Tikkun Olam from the perspective of serving our communities and working towards social justice, but also as a way to build relationships between communities. So to advance the shared values of equality, tolerance, and dignity for all. I'm Ben Orbach. I'm the CEO of the Ascendant Athlete, an advisor group that works with professional athletes to advance social justice and their impact in their communities. I've spent my career working on community development and social justice initiatives in the Middle East and Africa and here in the United States as well. And in a moment, I'm going to have the chance to welcome three incredible leaders to talk with us about the topic: Sue Bird, Alysha Clark, and Zach Banner. First, though, why is the power and potential of Tikkun Olam especially important right now? I don't think anyone out there needs me to tell you that 2020 has been a pretty dark year. Our world is plagued by crises of leadership. Principles of democratic governance are under attack. Increasing number of people feel comfortable rejecting science and facts, whether we're talking about the pandemic or climate change or something as basic as just counting votes. Unfortunately, we're divided and we think the worst of each other. So all of that's to say that we're not putting this on professional athletes, and it's not professional athletes' job to save us from ourselves. But within this context, athletes can be leaders and role models, particularly for the hundreds, if not thousands of young people who are going to watch this discussion, not just because of their accomplishments on the field or on the court, but in showing us the importance of speaking up for the other and calling out social justice challenges that we find in our communities and building relationships across our different divides that are based on these shared values that we cherish. Sue, Alysha, and Zach are athletes and social justice advocates who have succeeded at the highest levels of their sport. And they've used their platforms to demonstrate the courage of their convictions, speaking out on issues like racial injustice, gender discrimination, anti-Semitism, and other issues and challenges related to hate and intolerance. Sue Bird is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Among her many accomplishments, she's won 4 WNBA championships, 4 Olympic gold medals, 4 World Championship gold medals, 2 NCAA championships, and 5 EuroLeague championships. Alysha Clark is one of the best defensive players in the WNBA. She just won her 2nd championship with the Seattle Storm with Sue. And she's won league championships in Israel, Poland, and France. And she was a member of the Israeli women's national team from 2015 to 2017. And Zach Banner was starting offensive lineman for this year's still undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers before he tore his ACL earlier in the season. This is Zach's 4th year in the NFL. He was an All-American at USC before he started in the league. So please welcome Sue Bird, Alysha Clark, and Zach Banner. If we were all in person, you guys would be getting a standing ovation right now. I'll do that. Thanks for the help, Zach. That was going to be lonely. So thank you for being here and being a part of this conversation. And congratulations on all of the professional success that the three of you have had. More so, thank you for how you've approached those challenges that I've listed off in terms of what we're living through here with 2020. That each of you has stepped up in a meaningful way on behalf of principles of inclusion, equality, and social justice. And that's not a small deal. Like that, sometimes people expect you to do the right thing, but you guys actually are following through on that. So I'd like to get to that as soon as possible, but in the spirit of Jewish geography, I mean, the first thing that happens when Jewish people meet each other is we figure out whether we're related to each other and who we know in common. So, Sue, Alysha, you guys have Israeli passports. Alysha, you've played on the national team. I don't know if this audience is aware of the intricacies of being an overseas basketball player and what a second passport means. So if you guys could just explain how that comes to be, and then Zach, start thinking about how you ended up in TBT, because that's the next question.
Thank you for having
Gotcha.
us. I'm excited about this conversation we're going to have. But for overseas basketball players, teams in the different countries, you are allowed a certain number of foreigners. So like they're broken down by category, but basically like you can only have so many Americans on your team. And so if you are an American who also has citizenship in another country, you don't count as an American when you're on the court. And so, for me, I was fortunate enough to have some Israeli teammates my first year overseas who found out my grandfather was Jewish and explained to me what that meant. That I could be in Israel playing as an Israeli versus playing as an American. So it just gives you a little bit of an a lot of bit of an advantage because you're able to have a team with 5 Americans, but everybody has different passports from different countries. So
yeah, it's a huge advantage, and it was for me as well to have that Israeli passport. Actually, I got to play as an Israeli in Europe for probably like 5-6 years or so, and then they made a new rule once our team was doing so well, because there was a few of us that had dual citizenship, that you had to play under the passport of the national team you represent. So as you mentioned earlier, I play for the U.S. national team. So now my Israeli citizenship, in terms of basketball, no longer counts. But my father's side of the family is Jewish. My mom's is Protestant, so I grew up in a family divided, if you will. Got to do both Christmas and Hanukkah, and I think the best part about me getting in touch with kind of my dad's side of the family, like literally in touch, because I have relatives that live in Israel. So as I was going through the process of getting the passport, it was basketball motivated, but then I got to kind of, like I said, get in touch and dive into this side of the family that I hadn't before. So that's kind of my short story with it.
I don't really care what the laws are. We're always going to claim the two of you. So
Thank you.
that's fine and good. Zach, what about ZBT? How does a nice young man like yourself end up in a Jewish fraternity at USC?
So let's just get this out the way. Like, I have no idea or any clue or any sense of education about the Jewish community other than challah bread that I just got done learning how to pronounce. It's not challah, it's challah. I learned that this off season. If I would have known, like, what is it, 4 years ago? Yeah, 4 years. No, well, I pledged my freshman year, so technically 8 years ago, that I would be this deeply entrenched into the Jewish community just based off of being in a fraternity. They didn't tell me that. They approached me saying it was multicultural, and I just thought it was just a bunch of like short white dudes, and you know what I'm saying? And there was like, and so they came. They didn't teach me all of this, so I'm still educating myself, but it's dope. I want to go to Israel. I definitely want to like visit. I want to travel. And I definitely want to keep trying challah. I've had a whole bunch of challah.
For sure, the French toast.
It's fire. The French toast is fire. Oh my god, it's so good. And it's like it's one of those things that I enjoy. I enjoy being the local brother in the fraternity.
Well, we're happy to have you too, Zach, and I follow you on Twitter. I see you have no shortage of invitations for Friday night dinner and matzo ball soup. So like the challah is the appetizer, the matzo ball soup comes afterwards, and then there's a nap, there's more food, and
I'm trying all
it goes on. So okay, we've gotten that taken care of in terms of our where we're all coming from and why we're connected. Let's talk about why we're really here. And so we've got this concept in the Jewish community called Tikkun Olam in Hebrew. It literally means to repair the world. I've always thought of it as being both extremely arrogant and humbling at the same time. Arrogant because, who else has the chutzpah to feel is like each one of us has to make a difference in changing the world and making it a better place. And then humbling because, thankfully we are acknowledging these greater challenges that run through our communities, and it helps us to get beyond the day-to-day challenges that we each face as individuals, and understand that we're here for something bigger than ourselves. So if we could just level set in terms of the three of you and the different things that you've been doing. I thought, Sue, maybe could we start with you and share a little bit about the advocacy work that you do on LGBTQ plus issues and gender equity, and what motivated you to get involved with that. And then, Alysha, I wanted to ask you similarly about your work with Children's Hospital in Seattle, and what led you motivated to be with that. And then, Zach, you started your own foundation right after you were drafted, and if you could tell us a little bit about what led you to that, I think that'd be a great place to start.
Sure. I mean, the quick story is just, being a professional athlete, a female professional athlete, being a gay professional athlete. I didn't realize it for a really long time, probably not till a couple of years ago, but just my existence in this world, there's a lot that comes with it, a lot of negativity. And as someone going through that when you're young, you're fighting against it. And like I said, it's just your existence that's fighting it. And then a couple of years ago, I was like, wait a minute, like I need to be more vocal about this. It's enough, kind of what you said, it's almost like arrogant to think you can change the world, but humbling to think that you can be a part of that as well. And I think in the moment, I was just kind of going along with it when I was in my younger years. And then again, the last couple of years, it was like, wait a minute, I can actually have a difference. I can actually change, even if it's just a little piece of this world. And I started to take that more seriously and realize the weight that my voice carried, and understanding that almost selfishly, because like I said, as a gay professional athlete, like these are the things that affect my life directly. And then that actually leads into, how I define ally, which I'm sure we'll get to. But selfishly, it was like, wait a minute, I can't be quiet anymore. These are things I believe in, things that are directly affecting me, affecting the people around me, affecting my relationship. So that's kind of how it all got started. I mean, obviously we all know that I date Megan Rapinoe, who is very much, vocal and is always, on the front lines. And she 100% was a part of me finding my voice. So the combination of all of that has led to me sitting here today, and has led to some of the work that both me and AC did this summer with our league, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Alysha, do you want to go ahead?
So for me, I've always had a passion for kids. I grew up in a family of four. I have half brothers and sisters. My siblings all have children, so I've kids are our lives, and I've always believed that kids, they're just in their innocence. Are very truthful and telling, and they deserve a chance to be able to just enjoy their childhood, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of where they come from, where they go to school. And so I've always been involved, whether it be mentoring children, whatever it may be. And so it just happened to be what my first year in Seattle, we had a season ticket holder event, and one of our season ticket holders, who's now a friend, she came up and was talking to me. She's like, "Oh, I know you love, volunteering with children. I work at the Children's Hospital. We would love to have you come do some visits." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, absolutely." And then it wasn't until my second year in Seattle where I started to go visit, specifically the cancer unit, because that's where she worked. And just being able to go up there and, give an hour to these children, 2 hours, that's what it started off, was just an hour, just to help them feel like kids, help them feel like themselves, and not worry about when their next treatment was coming, when their next surgery was happening, just everything that was going on in the hospital. And that for me was life-changing. And so I wanted to help as much as I could. And in conversations with, my friend that was a nurse there, with some of the staff at the hospital, finding out ways I could help, led me to start my toy drive, which is now, I just did my 6th year with it. And, it was literally spur of the moment. I went back to our team PR woman, and I was like, hey, I know it's last minute, but I would love to kind of to do a toy drive to help, get toys in the playroom for these kids. Because what a lot of people didn't know at the time was in the playroom, that's where all the toys are facilitated to the children in the hospital. So, when they're on the cancer unit, they're not allowed to leave their rooms because of immune issues. And so it started from there. And, I continued to go every year, and I didn't want to document it. As I was going, they were like, "Oh, we can take pictures and do this," and I was like, "That's not why I'm here. I'm here for the kids." And so the last couple of years is the first time I actually started documenting things, and because I wanted it to help with my toy drive and help gain exposure for that. Um, and I'm really, really proud of it, and everybody that's helped and over the years, and has made it such a success that it is. And it's really been life changing, and really been important for the hospital. So I'm happy that they've welcomed me in, and allowed me to be a part in helping these kids just feel like kids.
Yeah, it's a great story. Thank you. Zach, what about you? What led you to start up your foundation?
And my foundation, personally, it really just comes from kind of like just who I am. I had 373 community service hours. I grew up like 45 minutes south of where these guys play, and it was one of those things that was just natural for. I just grew up like idolizing people who like did things with the community in a professional athlete standpoint. I just thought that was just like automatic. So I started it up with my manager, who's also my vice president, Sarah. She's my right hand woman. She really helps me out with everything in terms of finding the correct team, and we're able to put up together. We just founded a bunch of great board members, including Laura Oakman, who is also a Jewish female who works in sports broadcast, Ryan Clark, just a bunch of just great. Ryan Stern, I'm sorry, my bad. Ryan Clark is one of our players who's on air. But it's just one of those type of things where you put a great team, and they're able, as a professional athlete, I'm especially going through rehab now, focusing on myself, but in a way staying in touch with back home, in Tacoma, Washington, and then also in Los Angeles. Our 3 locations in B3 is Tacoma, Washington, Tacoma, Seattle area, Los Angeles, California, because of USC, and the island of Guam, which is where my mom is from. So I represent those 3 communities. It's like it's up to me as somebody who has done something with this kind of platform to just be able to work with the kids. And we do a lot of things like backpack drives annually in all 3 locations. But some of the biggest things that we've done is, especially recently, is this week I was able to announce that I'm able to make a commitment to scholarship, a new scholarship award winner every year, to a $10,000 a year for 4-year commitment to a scholarship for a kid in a community service way. So it's one of those things. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's one of those things where like I was able to go to USC for free because of athletic scholarship, but not so many people get that opportunity, and it's the harsh reality, especially with the pandemic going on. So my team is actually able to change lives. And so we're going through that application process now. And it's just one of the very few things that I'm just grateful for, that my team's able to provide for us and for kids and for the community.
Yeah, all 3 of you, I don't think you necessarily meant to, but you make it sound easy in terms of it's so clear to you in terms of doing the right thing. And my experience is that you might know what the right thing is to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to follow through and do it. That can be challenging. And to hear the 3 of you speak about it, it's inside of you in terms of that this was the actions you've taken. It seemed like a natural thing to do, but in particular, I'm thinking about high school kids that are going to be watching this, and it's hard to step forward and to there's challenges there. There's certainly people telling you that you're wrong. And I guess I'd like for you to each to reflect on that a little bit. I mean, Alysha, for example, I mean, you've done so much, and Sue too. I should include both of you in this question. Really, what you guys did in the W and the bubble this year. That, so much in terms of speaking up on Breonna Taylor and justice for Breonna Taylor and the Say Her Name movement and the things that you guys have done. And Zach, I know you're involved with as well in terms of voter education and trying to challenge those who are trying to take away the rights of others. And I guess from a personal perspective, can you reflect on, what was intimidating for you, or when you saw these challenges, like how did you overcome it in order to, follow through and I guess, in my opinion, do the right thing? Maybe others would not agree, but I don't think they're watching this.
Well, okay, so I'll go. I think a main part of it is I actually believe in it. These are things that I read about, things that I have many conversations with, everyone from who's in my household to, even people maybe who have different views. And part of that at the end of the day is I believe, like I am passionate about it. I firmly think the things that we stood for this summer in the WNBA have nothing to do with, opinions. It's fact. It's human life. It's equal rights. It's treating people the same. It's what we saw when we saw or heard the stories of Breonna Taylor and what we saw with George Floyd. I mean, these are facts. These are things, again, I believe. And I think the hardest part, well, actually, the easiest part is when you do believe in something and you do study up on it and you do become knowledgeable in these ways. It's easy to then, stand here and talk about it. It's easy then to have tough conversations because, like I said, that belief is real and it exists. I think the hard part, I laugh because I don't like being like a nag, like the annoying like person who's like poking at people. I don't necessarily love that. And I think there are times where you might be in a room, this like, hypothetical theoretical room where you're constantly the one being like, but black people are being killed by cops, and like, you're constantly being the one that has to be like, eh. So that's where I kind of struggle, not necessarily on that topic. That topic's easy. Those are the times where I have a hard time when like I feel like I'm constantly the one, like I said, raising my hand to be like, well, actually, women don't get paid enough. Or, well, actually, the real problem is this. And, we all have to deal with trolls on the internet. My best advice there is just to ignore it. They would never say it to your face. So you want to just, you want to put value in conversations that happen face to face as well. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think it's about believing, truly believing in what's right.
Yeah. And
Alysha, do you want to add in
and
on that one?
from my standpoint, not only about believing, but also having dealt with that and hearing stories from my family, my father, my sisters, and I think this summer, because I'm not really the type that likes to ruffle feathers or like talk about things that make people uncomfortable because I want everybody to get along. I want everybody to like, kumbaya. But, this summer was important for me because I found my voice. And, I know it's right, the things that I'm fighting for, and I know about them. I study. Before I speak about anything, I'm always educating myself first because when you speak, a lot of times people are going to come at you and try to discredit what you're saying. And like Sue said, the stuff that, using it as an example from this summer, the things that we were talking about and stating from this summer were factual. So you couldn't negate that. You couldn't say, oh, no, that's not happening. Well, actually, yes, it is. Here it is right here. Here are the numbers. Here are the statistics from everything. Yes, it is happening. I can tell you because it's happened to my father. I can tell you because it's happened to me. And so for me, it's about trusting what pulls at your heart. And when you know that something is tugging at your heart, when you know that, you should listen to it and follow that. And that's what I did this summer. The things that I was speaking about, are things that matter to me. And if what matters to me is right, and it's truthful and it ruffles people some feathers with some people, then that's fine. I can live with that because I know what I'm fighting for is what's right. And eventually it's going to either help educate others and help others see the bigger good picture, or it's not. And at least I can say I did my part, and that's something that I think just hanging on to that from this summer was something that I found really, really important.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and Zach, let me pull you into this as well. That after that Deshaun Jackson incident, and I don't want to pile on him in any sort of way. There was only 4 NFL players that spoke out against anti-Semitism. 2 of them were Jewish, and the other 2 play for the Steelers and have connections to. And I should say also, I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm from Squirrel Hill. Have connections to Tree of Life, and lived through that moment in Pittsburgh. And I have to say that there's a lot of Jewish people working in sports, and not a lot of people spoke about that, and you did, and I wonder if similarly like what Alysha and Sue have described, like what your thinking was, and were there sort of blinking red lights or fear challenges in front of you before you did?
I think it like comes from like 2 different levels. From like just a basic, from a basic level, it was just speaking out against like just a dumb comment, made by Deshaun. It was more of like, let's not pick on another minority group to try to elevate ourselves, and try to make ourselves look good and bring ourselves up. And that's, stepping on another group's back to get there is not the way we need to do it. But from a deeper level, it's just, it comes from my experiences as a Black and brown man in the United States, and like having friends who have been shot and killed due to gangs and violence, and but also especially against those who are supposed to protect and serve us. Like these guys have been advocating during their season, and so have we. And to a deeper level, fast forward to 24 years old, when the synagogue, Tree of Life synagogue, got shot up. That was like deep. That was on game day, or not the night before a game. That was one of the, those moments like, where were you during 9/11? Like, I'll always remember being at the team hotel, hearing about that, wondering why there was like, helicopters in the air, and that sense of violence. So that sense to bring it all together, it's hate. I didn't even know what anti-Semitism was. I was just sticking up for the Jewish community and my Jew friends, and like just like how like it's just being a good person. Like they said earlier, it's what's in your heart, and you can't do that. You just can't take someone down to elevate yourself. That's rude.
So I think that it's a good bridge to talk about allyship. And look, because of the nature of anti-Semitism in Jewish history, I feel comfortable saying from firsthand experience that there's a lot of Jewish people I've met over the course of my life at current events through a lens of anti-Semitism, and what I mean by that is that can lead you to be a little bit insular, a little bit protective, and to not necessarily look at things in an empathetic way, because we're worried about, well, when's this going to come around to me, and the hate and the discrimination it's around the corner. I can also say that I've had enough experiences in other communities where I don't think that that's something special to Jewish communities, but that other people think this way as well, that I have to guard myself. I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to look out for others and to help others, and it's an effort for some. So we know, though, that through the history of the civil rights movement, how important allies are and coalitions are, and that first we need to get to a majority in order to have legislative change, but we actually need to get to a supermajority of what I call supermajorities of decency to get to real cultural change. Sue, if I could start with you, I feel as if like you were almost like a prototypical example of an ally for Black Lives Matter advocacy and what we were just talking about with the Say Her Name campaign. Do you think you could talk a little bit more about what it meant to you to be an ally and what you think goes into being an effective ally?
Sure. Well, the one thing that, we've put this name, this word ally on it. And so we've all, I think, learned more about this word. And the one quote I came across, I think it was actually someone in the WNBA who said it, is that, ally is a verb, not a noun. And that really stuck with me, and all that means is, I think it became popular to say you're an ally. But what did that actually mean? And for me, being gay is not the same as being Black, so I'm not trying to make that comparison. But what I can take from being a gay person and seeing a straight person like stick up for me and what that makes me feel like, I think there's similarities there on just how it feels, And so as a white person, being able to speak up for Black people, and we'll get to like what it means. I just felt like that there's meaning there because I know what it felt like when a straight person stuck up for me. So there's something there that I've actually felt where I was like, okay. And I kind of put it, I was like, all right, I get, like, this is what this is. Sidebar, I just feel like, again, these are like, just like being a decent human things. These aren't, I don't think anybody in the WNBA was seeking out to be an ally. This is just like Alysha Clark is my teammate, my friend. Like, I know her well. I hear her stories. Again, it comes back to belief. How can I listen to her talk about, maybe something that happened in her family and not believe that and not see what has happened to her? So that all played a part. But where I was going with it is, as this ally, a lot of it is you want to support. And a lot of it is you need to just shut up and listen. That's a big part of it too, right? There are times to be vocal and to lend that voice and, again, lend that support. And then there are times you need to like take a back seat. And in this, where we are in our country as a white person, it's probably better most of the time to take that back seat and allow the Black voices to be uplifted. So I learned a lot just about how to kind of like figure that out. And everybody, so a big part of it actually, now that I've gotten to the point, a big part of it is you're probably going to make mistakes. You're not going to do it perfect. And that's cool. Like, we all mess up. So it's like, and you can't let it then like put you down, put you back 10 steps and you never recover. You just got to, hit that bump in the road and keep going. But like I said, this summer, I learned a lot just about, kind of like when to, how to show up in the best ways possible. And then at times how to take a back seat when I needed to. And that's kind of been my like allyship, my advocacy in one. And like I said, you're going to make mistakes. You can't let it deter you.
Yeah. Alysha, I'm going to come back to you in a second because I wanted to flip the question around. But Zach, is there anything that you wanted to add in on this in terms of being an ally and your thoughts on it?
Yeah, just like go back to like what Stu said. Like, when you say I'm Zach Banner, I'm an ally, it's like cool for like the videos and stuff. Like, it's cool for like advertisements and like commercials, but like really it just comes down to like just understanding your platform and what it means that somebody from your platform is even doing it. Like, for Sue to identify being a white basketball player, but just a white person in general, speaking up for people like myself, Black and brown, that's identifying her platform. I identify my platform that when another Black or brown guy says something that's an anti-Semitic comment, or it's just rude, or it's just dumb, or does that, to stick up and say, hey, he didn't mean that. That was dumb. That's not a representation of us. But also, like she said, it's just about being a good person and like meaning well and actually she talked about knowing when to take the backseat. Well, when to step up. I wish there were some more white guys in my sport that spoke up a lot more, but there are the good ones that know and identify their roles. Like, when Ben Roethlisberger stands out there on the sideline holding a sign side by side that Steelers or against racism, that means a lot, especially to a lot of the Black and brown kids over here in Pittsburgh on this side of the country. And it's just something that I really didn't feel growing up back home. And it's not to take shots at like anybody back then, but this speaking up thing is new. I mean, that's why like people who've played in the league for 10 plus years, 20 plus years, they don't understand it right now. It's because it's individualized voices, and it's a platform that no one's ever understood, and that we're still learning. And I think the best way to do that is to use it and to use your voice.
Well said. So Alysha, in getting ready for this, I watched the clip of you. I think it was after you hit a buzzer beater shot against the Lynx to win game 1 in the playoffs, and you said,
Dagger.
"We wanted to bring awareness and give a voice to the Black women that are often forgotten in this country. We are often overlooked and often unheard." And I thought that those were incredibly powerful words, multiplied by 100 for someone who just hit a game-winning shot, and that's what was on her mind. Can we flip this question around and thinking about the unheard voices of Black women? Like, how can we be allies? How is it male, female? What's helpful and what isn't?
Yeah, I mean, like for Sue, what Sue said about sometimes just understanding when to take a step back and listen. I think that's a huge part of what is most helpful. Because a lot of times as an ally, like you mean well and you want to help and you want, you're ready and you're excited to be able to lend a voice and lend a helping hand in these situations. But at the same time, you've never experienced the things that we've had to go through as Black women in this country. So I think, a big part of being an ally, one of the most helpful ways is to be open to listening, open to learning, to educating yourself. And, one of the biggest things Sue touched on was open to making mistakes. You've never had to walk in these shoes. You've never had to walk in this life. And so sometimes, yeah, you are going to mess up and say something wrong. And I think, it's a part of it. Just like in anything that you're doing in life and anything that you're learning about, you're going to make mistakes. But having that open mind of being like, okay, I made a mistake there, and coming, hey, how can I say this better? How can I, help communicate this better? What can I do in my community, in my daily community, to help, amplify the messages that you guys are talking about, that you're putting out there right now? And so, I think that is probably the biggest and best way to be an ally right now, is just being open, and not being afraid to ask maybe the dumb questions. Like, no questions are dumb. If you don't know it, if you've never had to experience something, it's not dumb. And when you have somebody that you are comfortable with, that you can have these conversations and ask these questions, that's only going to help you when you're now having these conversations with your friends and people in your circles. So that would be my advice, is just being open.
I think that's good advice. I want to see if we can get 2 more questions in before our time's up. And the first question, obviously the 3 of you are people who we consider role models, and that our audience, certainly looks up to. I look up to you in terms of the courage that you have and the things that you've said and done. But I'd love to know who you guys look up to. This is a great chance to shine the light on someone in your community growing up who influenced you, or someone at a national level that you feel as if high school students around the country should read about and learn about. But who are your role models, if we can go around the horn here?
I mean, I feel lucky that
Someone?
yeah, I feel lucky, like a bunch of people just like flew into my head. So both like directly I know them, and then indirectly I don't. so I'm going to try to make it short. I'm really lucky to be with Megan because it's somebody who I learned so much from, who inspires me so much in this way, and who's my role model. I'm not just saying this because she's on the call, but AC as well. By the way, AC is Alysha Clark. Alysha Clark is AC. So if I've been saying AC, that's who I'm AC as well, as well as the other women in the WNBA this summer. I think it's just been so remarkable to see, to watch someone like Alysha kind of go through what we went through this summer, both preseason, meaning the pandemic starting, all the protests, basically, social unjust hits, and just watching. We were on a ton of Zoom calls and talking about things and just kind of watching somebody like her, and again, the other women in the WNBA. So truly, my answer, I think, is the women of the WNBA. And I'm not just saying it because, for some like publicity stunt. Like it's actually real. It's they walk the walk, they talk the talk. We walk the walk, we talk the talk. And it's just been like I said, remarkable to kind of see how they're directly impacted by so much, the way they handle it, and how they put other people first, and really just want to continue to share that message, to share their message in this effort to I don't know, promote change. It's really, it's unreal when you think about it. And I had a front row seat to it, so I was truly inspired, and they're all my role models in that way.
Very good. Alysha, what about you?
Well, I was going to touch on that as well, just about the players this summer. But in particular, like I talk about Sue a lot, just in general, like basketball and how she is as a person. And a lot of people, like I've played in Seattle, going on 10 years now, and I've gotten a front row seat to watch how Sue operates and everything that she does, both as a professional and off the court. And just, over the last few years, just watching her, use the platform that she has and, step out of her comfort zone of being, she doesn't want attention. She doesn't want the spotlight on her. And, she's one of the most amazing athletes to ever play the game. And, when you have somebody that has done that, but, is so humble as she is, and, as involved as she is kind of like behind the scenes, to see her step into her own, has been really special for me to watch, and has been really encouraging and inspiring for me, just to be able to find my voice, because I was similar in that way. And so I think being able to watch her all those years before to now this summer finding my own voice, she was definitely like a secret part. I didn't tell her this, in me being able to have the confidence to do that. So that for me she's one of the people that I look up to. And somebody else I learned a lot about this summer, because she's, on our advocates board, is Stacey Abrams. Just her intelligence, the way that she has, been fighting against, voter suppression, and trying to just fight for the people in Georgia and people of color for education and equality. And she's been doing it for years. Like, it didn't just happen. So, for almost a decade and more, like, and to now see her where she is now, to have the impact that she's had, in this election, and furthermore, I was so inspired to learn about her this summer and be able to sit on Zoom calls with her and learn from her, because I'm like, wow, this is somebody who's dedicated to her passion, to her craft of serving others. And she's been doing it for so long and never gave up. And now she's seeing the fruits of her labor. And I was so inspired by her this summer.
Yeah, certainly an incredible example of resilience. That's for sure. Zach, what about you? We're running short on time, but we have to hear from you in terms of someone you look up to.
I'll be quick. I'll be quick. It's like from a past standpoint, inspiration. Like I said, I grew up with this mindset of like, what an athlete is supposed to do. And an athlete, especially professional athletes, like, guys like Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, those who have also been dominant at their sports, but have also spoken up and represented a lot of people who are not represented in this world outside of sports and entertainment. So it's hard to have a voice, especially a political one that can help make change. And men and women like them have understood that. So I had the Ali poster next to my Swoops and Bird poster, also growing up, and like just a slight shout out right there to the hometown heroes. And when it comes down to a present standpoint, being in the league, inspiration, local athletes, like just like they said, the entire WNBA and the NBA actually in a public stamp, we get booed for putting certain stickers on our helmets, so it's a lot harder in our sport right now from a player to owner standpoint. The ownership is they're backing us a lot in the NFL, which is dope, and I think that's what made such a loud, turnaround this year in terms of athletes' voices and the players' voices, especially in the NFL. And the players and coaches are getting voices out that have not represented our sport consistently for a very, very long time. So it feels amazing to brighten people's faces, even through phone because of the pandemic and everything, and through social media. You still see how you're able to change people's lives by inspiring, but also making change by using your platform. So it's just like we've been saying this whole time. It's just all about being a good person.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to finish up. So let me say two things. One, first, thank you, Sue, Alysha, and Zach for this conversation and for being examples in terms of this concept of Tikkun Olam, community service and making our world a better place. And second, I want to just underline the point for our audience of students that are watching this, that you don't have to be a professional athlete to make a difference. That Sue, Alysha, and Zach all have these large platforms, but you heard what they said, and that they're doing these things because they are leaders and they care and they believe in social justice, and it's just their platform enables them to say it louder. But for all of you that are watching, that Tikkun Olam, the betterment of our communities, the advancement of social justice, it's actually up to you and what you're going to do for us to get to these places. And it's your actions and attitudes that are going to make a difference, and that if we prioritize these values of equality and dignity, that's not just going to help us build better relationships inside of our Jewish world, but that's going to build relationships to different communities, because those are values that we cherish, but they're not exclusive to us. I mean, what you heard today is that we hold these values across the board, and that's what's going to bring us together. So thank you again to the three of you. This was a great conversation. And this is going to air in a couple weeks. So happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Please be safe. Take care. Please continue to wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.